Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Board Games Hitting My Table. This is where I talk about all of the board games that I have been playing over the last couple of weeks. This episode covering the second half of March 2024. Now, I've had a really good couple of weeks, so I've got tons of games here to talk about, so I may be forced to skip by these games a little bit quicker than usual. But before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's start with Camala. So it's been a little while since I played Camala, and that's going to apply to a few of these games on this pile, because I'm trying to play some games that haven't hit the table for a while. But this one, definitely my favourite Fabio Lipiano game. Love this mechanism of when you're choosing your action, you're placing them between two different actions, and then you can trigger both of those. But in the future, when somebody goes to that action, they will get their action, but also you as the person who's been there before, and even the person before that will also get that action. And what you're trying to do here is that you are trying to collect resources, donate those resources to these different buildings for area control. Also trying to create cloth and then send that cloth off to these different regions. Basically, it's a big area control game and with lots of crossover, but I do like the forward planning in this game where you can look ahead about what's going to score. Now, I suppose, apart from actually loving the way this game works mechanically, I think my only issue with it is that the separation between you and the other players is so small, because, you know, if you're playing a three-player game like I was here, then if you are winning the region, you get 3 points, second in the region, 2 points, and third, you get 1 point. And that means that you can't really overinvest into all these different locations. And because you kind of know when you're not going to win, you're going to move on to the next thing, and by the end of the game, it's going to really balance out. And that is what happened here. I think one player, the first place and second place ended up in the same points, and were just differentiated by a tiebreaker, and then I was 1 point behind them. So you can see the margins are extremely small, which is, you know, slightly off-putting for me. But again, I'd love to see maybe the scoring separated a little bit more. I'm not sure if the newer version does that, but still, mechanically, a wonderful, wonderful game. Let's crack on with a few smaller ones. Then we played High Score, just a quick little dice rolling game. We have played some more Marabunta, so I've played this a couple of times with my girlfriend and with my mum, actually. This one, I'm loving it at the moment. I think if I was to make a top 10 two-player games, this one would probably make the top 10 if I was to make it at this time. It's a wonderful little I Split You Choose game. I have recently reviewed it on the channel. Wonderfully elegant, and just I love the way this one works. So, you know, taking that I Split You Choose mechanism with the roll and write and area control, it all comes together wonderfully in this little game. Some more fillers then. We play some four-player games of Spicy. Nice little bluffing game there. And I've managed to get High Society back to the table after quite some time. So we played a three-player game of this one, and I'm always quite interested how, you know, this game could end really abruptly, or it can go right to the end. And in this most recent game, it was actually the last card in the whole deck that was the end game trigger card, which was quite interesting because we really were depleting our money. I think I was automatically disqualified from winning because I just spent a little bit too much. But still, I love this little bidding game where you're simply buying your points or bidding not to lose points as the game progresses. An absolute classic. Played some more Acropolis. You know, regularly hits the table, and if you watch my channel regularly, you probably know I'm a huge advocate of this little tile placement game where you're building upwards as well as spreading outwards, scoring points in different ways. I think I managed to get one of the scoring categories. I believe it was the yellow buildings. I got a huge multiplier on that one, which managed to get me the win. Love this one. Managed to play some more Euro games. So a bit like Camala, I was really eager to get Goa back to the table, one that I haven't played for probably about a year and a half now. This one is, I think it's my favourite Rudiger Dawn game. It's going to be close between this one and Istanbul. This one is another auction style game where before the auctions start, you are going to be moving around this grid deciding what is going to come up for auction, and then it has a once round auction mechanism where everyone can bid a figure, obviously raising on the last, but if you were the one to set what was going for auction, you can pay one less than the highest bid. So you do get a bit of a discount by choosing what is coming up. And what you're trying to do is you're improving your little engine here by increasing your resource output and your ability to kind of colonize these different places and ship the goods off. Very clean, classic Euro. Definitely feels like a game of, you know, a bygone year, but it holds up very, very well. And I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets a reskin sooner rather than later, but it's just an absolute classic Euro. I can't quite remember how the game went because it was quite a few weeks ago I played this one, but it was definitely reaffirmed to me how much I like this one. We also played a quick game of Finca, again another game I've recently reviewed on the channel, has been covered in quite a few of my videos. Lovely little resource management game. Very punchy, nice to look at, and this one is getting a reprint soon, so that is Finca. Also played, I believe it was a 4-player game of Manila. So this is a game I'm kind of cooling on, if I'm honest. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate the game, but it's a game that I think has been improved upon. So this one is a kind of a wagering style game, a bit of betting, as you are controlling these ships, or you're betting on these ships, and you're rolling dice to decide how much, or to see how much they move along this track. If they make it into port, that could be a good thing because you can bet on a certain amount of ships coming in or not coming in, and things like that. And you can even jump on the ships themselves and get a share of the money. So it has this Camala feel to it, where as the game progresses, more information is drip-fed to you, but the opportunities could bleed past you, and you might miss out on that opportunity to actually be, or get a portion or a share of those spoils. Now, I think the game is a little bit anticlimactic at times. I think it falls a little bit flat, whereas in Camala, I think the swingy moments or the exciting moments are a bit more often. And this one is, yeah, I think it's a little bit dated and has been improved by that other game, but it's okay. I do like the production here. I think there's also this this shares mechanism that doesn't quite seem right. It seems a little bit tacked on and doesn't really, well, it quite clearly differentiate who wins the game or not. So, you know, it's fine. Again, I think it's dated, and I don't think this one's going to really get a resurgence. But that is Manila. Also played some more War Chest. I think just the single game of War Chest that I played. This was a 2-player game rather than a 4-player game, using the Siege expansion. So the first time I've used that expansion that obviously uses the Siege towers, which makes certain spots on the board harder to attack because you can kind of turtle in those locations and attack outwards, but your opponents must knock the walls down before they can attack you back, which was really nice. Now, I managed to kind of blitz to get to those fortifications quickly, which definitely served me well. And I actually had one of the new units in my fold as well, the Siege Tower, which is pretty slow because you only get 4 tokens. But when you attack with them, as long as that unit is fortified or bolstered, you can attack twice with a single attack, which is really dangerous and definitely scared my opponent away. So even though I didn't use that unit, I definitely used it to kind of, you know, herd my opponent away from it, which definitely served me well. So yeah, love this game. It is, you know, amongst my favourites now, and you know, the more content I have, the more I enjoy it. So I've got the Nobility expansion, and now I've got the Siege expansion, and I'm looking forward to the new one as well, which I think adds a bit more kind of clandestine and sneaky tactics into the mix. So that is War Chest. Another one of my favourites from last year now. This is Havland. I'm definitely flying up on my rankings. Definitely a polarising Knizia style game. I saw that the Dice Tower reviewed this one recently quite negatively, and that baffles my mind. But this game is so cool, as you are moving this hot air balloon around this big kind of grid of these hexes. And you're deploying these hot air balloons onto these different zones. And you're scoring points in different ways by connecting them together in certain regions, and even trying to venture into the different location types with the hope of launching that fleet and scoring a bunch of points. Now, something that's becoming more and more apparent to me about this game is how much that push your luck aspect comes in, because you can try to go for these huge swings of points, but your options quickly dwindle and you might not get that big launch, because in order to launch the fleet, you need to attach to that fleet on that turn, which might not always be available. And that actually happened to, I believe, 2 of my opponents. I played it a bit more safe and launched my fleet when it was moderately big, whereas they were going for all the points and I think they missed out. So yeah, this one is such a good game, and I think it's going to get overlooked by some other Knizia route building style games like Babylonia or Through the Desert. This one I think is as good as those, and definitely way into my top 100 at this time. So that is Havland. Played a 3-player game of Spirium. Another game, a bit like Camala and Goa. I really wanted to get this one back to the table after so long. And this one is a more succinct game. It's by William Attier, actually, who is most known for Kalus. This one is a worker placement game, but instead of taking certain actions by placing it on a particular action, you are placing your worker in between 2 cards. And it has this mechanism that is in a game called Jorvik, where you are either going to use your worker in order to remove it from the board and get coins equal to everyone else surrounding that card, or in order to claim that card for yourself, you have to pay for every other worker around it. So it has this kind of chicken mechanism as people are dropping out of the mix and making things cheaper, but they're getting money for doing so. So it really is about, how much you're going to pay and how much do you think your opponents are willing to pay. And you're building up this engine of creating the Spirium, which is like your resource in this game, your workers, your money, of course. Your money in this game is extremely tight. And yeah, you're trying to use these buildings and powers and be the best to score the most points. So a real kind of traditional Euro style game with that very cool mechanism. It works well because it moves at a brisk pace. It's only 6 rounds, and each of those rounds is pretty snappy. So you can play this one in about 45 minutes. And yeah, it definitely it hits a lot of sweet spots, or hits a lot of notes in such a short time. And if you like worker placement games, this is one to definitely check out. Could do with a lick of fresh paint, I think, in terms of new artwork and stuff. But I think if they did that, or whoever's got the rights to this game, could do well of a relaunch. So that is Spirium. More Euros now. So I played a 3-player game of Footprints. Now this one, I have recently reviewed it on the channel. It might actually be my last uploaded video. This one is a kind of a game where you're moving across this grid again. You're trying to race to the end, improve your little engine by putting these different tokens down and increasing your movement. And it all works through this card system. Now, this game was actually probably the most difficult one in terms of us moving across the board, because we're really struggling to have those right cards in our hands. But by the end of it, we all did pretty well. My brother did exceptionally well because he managed to claim a lot of these footprint cards, which are your personal objective cards. I just sadly didn't manage to get those going and lost a few points on them as well. And that was definitely the difference maker. None of us managed to make it to the end, and none of us managed to even get one of those endgame objectives completed, or one of the endgame scoring tiles claimed. So yeah, it was quite interesting how this was it played out differently, and the footprint cards was the difference maker. But again, definitely advocate this one. That is Footprints. On to one of my favourite games of all time now. So we played a 4-player game of Chinatown, and boy oh boy, this was definitely the highlight out of all of these games. Had an absolute blast playing this one. One of the closest games of Chinatown that I've ever played. We were all within, I think, a couple of 100,000 currency, whatever it is in this game. Dollars, I believe. And yeah, it was, some of the deals that were being made were just so interesting, very tense, very aggressive negotiation. One of my favorite games of all time, and I think I even raised it to a 10 out of 10 after playing this most recent game. So firmly in my top 3 games of all time now. So that's how much I think of this one. It's just an absolute masterpiece. God knows why they managed to, they rebranded this as the Waterfall Park. It doesn't even work. This theme is perfect for this game, and to be honest, the game is pretty much perfect. So that is Chinatown. I played a 4-player game of Chin, and that might be the first time I've played this game at 4 players, actually. I normally play it at 2 or 3 players. And you know what? I loved it at 4 players. I know a lot of fans of this game think it's only good at 2, really, because it's a bit more deterministic. But I thought it worked really well, and it gave the chance for other players to somewhat collude in order to bash the leader, because I think I did get out of the gates quite quickly on this one and was pulling ahead. Everyone tried to work together to try and kick my pieces off the board. It wasn't quite enough, but it definitely gave that leverage to the other players to try and work together to close that gap. But this is a domino style game where you're racing to shed these pagodas that you have by creating these different regions and stuff. Just a wonderful, clean design that I really enjoy, and it's definitely become one of my favourite games and one of my favourite Knizia games. I played some more Dropolta. I've played some more Ship Shape. This was actually quite an interesting game because I think the first round one of my opponents was way ahead and we managed to close that gap quite a lot. So definitely can have some swingy rounds in this little tile placement game. I played a 3-player game of Capital Lux, and I used a couple of the modules that I've not seen before or not used before, and these were like kind of the most involved modules, and I put them all into one game because, you know, we were all feeling quite fresh of mind. We thought, you know what, let's chuck everything in and see how it goes, and we had a fantastic game. So, you know, we had 2 extra sets of cards that we were playing with, lots of kind of messing around with all the different state of play. But this is like a blackjack variant with lots of things going on, as you want to have these 4 different suits of cards, or in this example we had 5 different suits of cards, trying not to go over the limit in the city, but you are, as the players, either bolstering the city value or bolstering your own value. But whenever you play in a city, a certain action or ability will be triggered, which can completely change the game. You know, the pacing of the game is dictated by the players, and you can even catch people off guard by forcing people to play cards in front of them. So I think my record of this game hasn't been so good of recent, but this game I did quite well on. Everything seemed to fall at my feet, and yeah, it just went really well. But yeah, I was a little bit apprehensive, thinking it could be a little bit too convoluted, trying all of the more advanced modules, but in reality it still worked really well. So because it's such a well put together game, it kind of just holds its own and can stand on its own 2 feet and, you know, stand up to that scrutiny. Another game that I've not played in a long time, we played a 4-player game of Las Vegas Royale. So there was a time when I was playing this game, you know, almost weekly. This is an area control game, a dice rolling area control game where you're, you know, rolling a big bunch of dice, choosing one of those pip values that you roll, and then committing them to these casinos with the hope of trying to have the most dice there, and then claiming the bigger bill that's on that particular casino. Now, whenever you go to one of the lower locations, you get to play these little mini games. I was using the more simple ones because I was teaching this game, and it's just a real ruckus experience. Has that real Las Vegas feel to it. I think I only played 2 out of the 3 rounds because I think this was the last game that we played, and we just wanted to end on a shorter game rather than going the whole length. But the good thing about this game is that you can go into it saying, you know, let's play 2 rounds rather than 3, should you wish to. You can even play just 1 round if you like. But that is Las Vegas Royale. You know, I think previously I put this on an essentials list. I think this is a game that anybody can get joy from because it is so much fun. So that is Las Vegas Royale. On to the last few now then. So I played a 2-player game because this is an only 2-player game, or 2-player only game of Kirei The Jewel. This is like a paper, rock, scissors variant which has this samurai feel or theme, which actually works really well. And you're trying to hit your opponent twice by playing these cards simultaneously, which will either kind of move your little warrior or do like a low attack or a high attack and so on. And funny enough, I think this is only the second time I've played this game. The first time was like a game of chess where we just could not get a hit in. And I think this most recent game we played 3 rounds and I'd already killed my opponent because they just played the wrong card. So it's quite interesting how it can go one way or the other. Definitely, you know, a game of luck, but you can try to get into the head of your opponent and guess what they're going to do in order to block their attacks. But, you know, you do have to be prepared that it's probably going to come down to luck in the end. Speaking of luck, we played a few games of Rapido. I talk about this one all the time, so I'll just move on from that one. And I also played a 4-player game of Cursed Court, another game I've been playing a lot recently, so quite nice. This one's hitting the table. A little bluffing style game, bidding style game. I have recorded my review of this one, so hopefully that will be uploaded soon. Another couple of games that I have played that I don't have the copy of here. I played Everdell, which again I haven't played in quite some time actually. A nice little engine builder. I don't mind it. It's fine. I think I did quite well for once. I'm not normally very good at that game. And I forgot the other game I've played, but I'll put a picture up just so you guys know. But that's it really. So you can see I've played a ton of games. Been very fortunate to play so many, and so many good ones as well. My favourite card games, my favourite games of all time, like Chinatown, Capital Lux, more recent games like Footprints, some older favourite Euros like Spirium and Goa, and even some nice Knizia style games like Havland, and even abstract Euros, abstract strategy games like War Chest and so on. So definitely a whole variety of games here. So definitely branching out in the styles of games that I enjoy. But hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.